All right, YouTube. All right, so today we here. This one's a little different. I'm not doing any type of tutorial on how to make beats or anything like that. I'm actually giving you guys some tips that I wish I kind of knew in the beginning when I first started making beats. I got about 5 tips for you guys. These are tips and things that I wish I knew when I started, or just things that are actually still useful now, even after you've started as a producer. So it just kind of depends on how you want to take it. They could be beginner tips, or they could be intermediate tips, or advanced tips. Either which way, they're tips or tips. But these are 5 things that I wish I knew in the beginning when I first started, kind of to set me up for success later on in the future. These are just things that I've learned from experience. They're not in no particular order. They don't really matter or anything, which one comes first or anything like that. But leave a comment in the comment section of what your favorite tip is. Maybe add some tips in for yourself. Anything that you could piggyback off of what I said and you want to add to it, be more than welcome to go ahead and do that. This is a learning community. This is what I'm trying to build and cultivate a community for producers to kind of build and work together and learn from one another. So the 5 things I wish I knew before making beats. Um, the first thing is kind of how I got started into making beats was actually watching other producers make beats. I kind of got started because my friends were with freestyle. We'd be hanging out, chilling. They'll freestyle a little bit. I wasn't really a freestyler, but I go and pick out some beats for them or something like that. Some beats I thought were hard. And then eventually I was like, you know what, I can't freestyle, so how about I just make some beats? So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up making beats. But how I got started doing that was by watching watching the greats. So I remember my very first experience of like, I kind of want to make beats was I was cutting the grass. I was in like my freshman year of college or going towards my freshman year of college, really. I think it was like the summer that I graduated and I was 18. I was cutting the grass. I was listening to Finally Rich by Chief Keef, one of my favorite artists, and Young Chop. I produced a lot of that. One of my favorite producers. So I was just sitting there cutting the grass. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, dang, like these beats are hard. Like, how does he make these beats? And so I cut the grass, went in, took a shower, and immediately hopped on the internet and started looking up how to make beats, how do producers make beats, Young Chop type beat, things like that. And I came across plenty of other producers. One of the main producer that I've always studied and taken a lot of influence from and have just really appreciated was Zaytoven. Zaytoven is definitely one of my favorite producers. It's at that time and still to this time is definitely 100% one of my favorite producers. I just like the way that he does stuff. I like how he literally punches in everything. He uses an MPC and literally taps in all his hi hats, all of that. All of that is just like an artwork to me. It's super cool. So the first tip I would suggest is to study the great. Study an artist or a producer or a particular sound that you like or something that you kind of want to learn from. I don't mean so much as to like steal ideas and cheat from, but as far as learning the concept. So I learned a lot just by watching a simple Zaytoven beat. I watched Zaytoven. I think in this beat he actually laid the 808 first, which I thought was really weird. But he laid the 808 pattern first, and I think he added like a hi hat and a clap, and then he just jumped on the keys and just started going crazy with the keys. You know what I'm saying? Just like how he does. And to me, that was just simply amazing. So that's how I started. I started out by watching the greats. So I watched, Young Chop. I watched Zaytoven, Metro Boomin, like Southside, like all the main producers that you hear about. I watched them do cook up videos, and it just inspired me. So just study the greats, and from those greats, learn the basics. You want to learn the basics of how to make a beat, what a beat is made out of, the melodies, the instruments, the clap, hi hat, 808. You want to put it all together so that you have a cohesive sound, something that sounds like a beat. Like as long as you got your melodies, you got your clap, you got your hi hat, and the 808 pattern. Even if it's your first beat and it just sounds awful, if you have those elements, you've made a beat. So all you have to do is just continue to work and develop your sound. So study the basics when it comes down to how to make a beat, how to structure a beat, what a beat entails, which is what this channel is for. This is what I'm going to help you guys do, and then just study the greats, the people that you look up to, the people that influence you. That's what you want to do first. That's one of the first things that I wish I would have known beforehand. I did kind of know it, obviously, because I kind of did it, But had somebody sat there and told me like, hey, that was a good idea. This is the proper way. Go ahead and start kind of learning by just observing. That's a good way. I wish somebody would have told me that in the beginning. I probably would have started a lot sooner. The next number two tip that I got for you guys is a big one. And it's equipment and its reliability is key. So you want your equipment to always be up to par, and you want to have reliable equipment and DAWs and plugins, and you want all your stuff to be reliable. It starts with your equipment, meaning your headphones, your speakers, your computers, and then it moves on to being reliable. Is your stuff reliable, and then is the program that you're using, is it quality and is it reliable as well? So if you're using a DAW like FL Studio, such as myself, it's probably best that you go ahead and pay for FL Studio. Now I know everybody can get FL Studio for free, but in hindsight, when I was started off making beats, I had more problems using a cracked version of FL Studio than I did when I actually purchased the FL Studio. So when I was using the cracked versions, everything would work fine up until it's time for an update. A producer sends me a collab, or sometimes just stuff would stop working for whatever reason, just like a keygen or something would stop working. A DLL file just disappear or something. I never have that problems now that I've purchased my FL Studio. I get the free updates, the lifetime updates. You pay one time, and I think FL Studio was like $100. Like I don't even think it's $200. Uh, but it's worth actually buying your DAW. So if you buy the DAW, it's actually worth it, in my opinion, simply because you know you're not going to have any hiccups, any problems, any issues with your DAW. And if you do have problems with it, you can actually contact the DAW that you use. By DAW, I mean digital audio workstation. So you can contact FL Studio and say, hey, I've got some issues. Here's my account. Here's my email and everything. What's going on? Why is it, why am I having these issues? And they'll help you out or fix your problem, whatever the case may be. But if you're going around getting the cracked versions, yeah, you can get it for free, save you $100 and everything. But the downside is if you have issues, you just got to refind another cracked version. You run the risk of compromising the integrity of your computer, catching a virus or something, or just downloading something that you don't need on the actual computer. There's a number of things, which all goes back to the reliability of your actual device. So that gets me to another point in that with reliability and equipment. So I carry and use two computers. I have a Mac and then I have a PC computer. Currently, I'm recording this on my PC computer. But at one point in time, when I was mainly using my Mac for my design stuff and graphic work, I wouldn't download anything on my PC. So like if I had a PC and I wanted to download, say, Nexus, or I want to download a drum kit or anything like that, I wouldn't even try to download it on my Mac or on my PC. I would download it on the Mac. The reason being is because on the Mac computer, when you're downloading Windows stuff, the Windows viruses that are on your that would attack your computer when they're downloaded on Mac, it's like Mac can't even read it, doesn't even understand it. So if you download a cracked file that has a virus on the Mac, it's not going to affect your Mac. And lots of times your Mac will sit there and comb through things and get rid of the virus anyway, or some type of virus protection is already on it, or at least the Mac will alert you and say, hey, there's something wrong with this file, don't download it. Now, Windows computers do the same thing, but again, you got to think the average person, and most people have a Windows computer, so the average hacker is going to make viruses for the Windows computer versus them for the Mac, and then they're not going to work, against each other. So like you can't make a Windows virus and then download it on Mac and then it affects Mac like that. So that's not going to happen. So at one point in time, I would just download all my stuff on my Mac, then make sure it was all cleaned and everything was good, and then move it over to my Windows computer. So that's one thing I suggest if you have the capability of having two computers. If you don't have the capability of having two computers and you're just one or the other, just be careful with what you download, where you're getting it from. And once you actually get a good download for stuff, it's actually a really good idea to get maybe a flash drive, an external hard drive, and several different other devices and save these actual installs onto those devices and then back them up, back them up, back them up. Um, the reason I say back them up is because when it comes with the equipment and the reliability, you don't want to have a situation where you've made the greatest beat in the world, but because you've cracked this FL Studio, now your DAW's not working properly, it crashes on you, and now you've lost this beat. I can't tell you the number of times that that's happened to me. in the earlier years when I first started and I was using cracked versions. So I highly suggest getting the most reliable stuff, the best equipment that you can afford, and then paying for at least paying for your dolls. I know that the plugins are a lot, a lot more expensive and things like that. You can kind of work your way around that, but at least pay for your doll. So at least pay for the program that you're actually using, so you can at least get the updates and stay up to date, things of that nature. So that kind of leads me on to the third thing. I kind of already mentioned it. So the third tip that I got is save, 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 and save again. So I know initially when I first started making beats, I had a demo version of FL, so you couldn't actually save. So once I actually got a cracked version, when I was doing cracked versions of FL Studio, I would sometimes get in the zone of making a beat, go ahead and open up a new project, get started, make it start cooking up and everything. Everything's going good. Then boom, computer dies. Boom, computer crashes because it's a cracked version, or because my computer I cheaped out on the computer. My CPU starts to go crazy, and then it just gets stuck, and then it crashes or something of that nature, and I didn't save. So there's numerous beats that I was just sitting there jamming out to, thinking was like the best beat in the world, probably one of my favorites, and then boom, I lost it just because I did not save. So the third tip is always hit that save button. You can actually have a setting on your FL Studio. I'm not sure about other DAWs. I'm sure it's like this, to where it automatically saves every so often, every couple of minutes. That's a useful tool. And then there's shortcuts to hit, like I think Control S or Alt S is save on FL Studio. I forget because, like I say, I use Mac and Windows, so sometimes I get a little confused. But just save as you go. So as soon as you open up a project, um, with me when I first open up a project and start a project, sometimes I kind of like to tinker with the beat a little bit and kind of get a vibe for the beat before I go ahead and save it and name it. You can do that, but you still kind of run that risk. But the best thing to do, honestly, is just to go ahead and as soon as you open it up, immediately name the beat, hit save on it, whatever you're going to name it, or whatever the case may be, and go ahead and get started and just periodically save throughout your session. Just make it a habit of hitting save. If you make a change, hit save. So save, 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 and save again. So always save. Another good tip for that is if you do go through the files on FL Studio and you find your projects, it's a good idea to every so often after maybe you've added like maybe like 4 or 5 different beats, 5 projects or so, to copy all your projects and then move and keep them where they are, but also copy them into a different folder or into a different hard drive is really the best, just in case you ever lose that actual computer. So another example, a lot of the placements that I have in my earlier years, like D Lone Thug, Boat Time with Lil Yachty, some stuff with D Savage, some other young band stuff. A lot of those beats were made on an older computer that I still have, but that computer does not operate and function at the best ability. I can open it up, kind of use stuff, but it's old. It's been worn out. It's got millions and millions of different downloaded stuff on there, so it just doesn't work properly. But if I had those project files copied and saved somewhere else, which I probably still could do this, I could then take those project files and probably open them up on this computer and kind of give you guys the insight on how I made those beats. Now, the very first computer that I had, I won't be able to do that because, like I said, quality is key and having reliable equipment is key. So, my very first computer, it didn't even have internet. The internet card went out, so I'd have to send stuff back and forth with flash drives, all types of stuff. It's just rinky dink and just crappy. Just was, put halfway done, half put together computer, but it got the job done. But I wish in hindsight I had gone back, copied all my project folders and everything like that so that I could still have them and still open them up today and be able to show you guys how I made the beats that I made. So just save, 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 and save again. On top of that, make copies of your projects and things like that. Make copies of your installs because if you create a beat on one computer and you don't have that VST on the next computer, when you try to open the file, it's not going to work. But at least if you can install it again, then you can at least make it work. So that's number three, save. Um, Number four, it's kind of already touched on that as well. That's purchase legit dolls and plugins when possible. So this is kind of where I want to talk more about the plugin aspect of it. Purchasing the dolls is just kind of simple and straightforward. Whatever the doll costs, just pay for it, buy it, get it. Then you won't have anything to worry about. When it comes down to the plugins, I understand that a lot of those plugins are several $100. They're super expensive, and you might spend like $600 on something like Nexus. Um, I'm not saying go out and pirate those things and like get the cracked versions, but if you can get one and it works and you don't have any issues, go ahead and do it. It's a little bit different when you have cracked versions of plugins versus the cracked version of the DAW. The DAW could, the DAW, your DAW, you can always get fixed. You can always update and change and do what you need to do. When the cracked plugins stop messing up, like or start messing up, you have bigger issues. Like sometimes you'll open it up and it'll crash your whole entire project. So that's why it's good to have the legitimate DAW, because then if it does crash, then you don't have to worry about that also having some type of issue as well, because you cracked that too. So when it comes to plugins, I've always gotten paid for, some of my plugins, but the ones that I just didn't pay for, I would go to legitimate buyers like these guys on Instagram or wherever you see them, or on Reddit or whatever, that have the installs. And usually those people will install my plugins like using TeamViewer or something like that, and it's usually a quick, pretty decent, quick process. They'll get it installed, and usually I don't have any problems. Sometimes with the cracked versions, you might get a bum one, but lots of times these people that are reselling these plugins and whatnot, they probably paid for them themselves, and they're just reselling the same key gens and things of that nature. So I do understand plugins are a little bit different, because nobody wants to shell out six, seven, $800 for each DAW that they're using or anything like that. Or not DAW, excuse me, for their plugins. Nobody wants to spend that much on plugins, because I know I use about 10, 15, 20 different plugins just all downloaded on my computer. So if I were to pay like $500 a pop, that can get pretty pricey. So just try to use the most legit stuff you can, legit DAW, legit plugins if you can, and have legit drum kits and things of that nature. The combination of having all these things that are legit or higher quality is going to make a major difference in your sound when you're making beats. So for instance, if you're getting, low budget cheap drum kits, your clap may sound funny versus a high quality clap that you may have to end up, paying for. So I've paid for drum kits. I've paid $100, $150 for drum kits just to get, just a handful of sounds. And, it happens to come with some other sounds, but a lot of these drum kits are recycled and things of that nature. So if you've got the main ones that everybody uses, you probably have most of the sounds. But just, pick quality sounds, quality drum kits, get good quality plugins, and have a legit DAW. Make sure everything is as quality as you can, so you just don't run into that reliability issue. All right. So if I did have to place one of these tips onto the top tier, I would definitely say it's this one. I forgot about this one. This is tip number 5. This is probably the realest one I can actually tell you. Burnout is real. You can definitely get burnt out on making beats. It is very real to get burnt out on beats. And just being creative in general. So other besides me making beats, I like to do a lot of other things. I like to work on my car. I like to go out and do outdoor activities, hiking, things like that. I like to do a lot of different things aside from just music. You can get burnt out on any and everything. It does not matter how much you love it, how much you care about it, how much you feel like you could actually do it. If you do something every day, all day, 24/7, and you kind of make it to where it's like an incentive-based thing rather than you're doing it for enjoyment, you're doing it like, okay, I have to do this, I got to do this and get this done, you will get absolutely burnt out. Um, the best way to kind of avoid being burnt out, in my opinion, from what I've learned, is simply just stop, take a break, and go do something else. So, for example, I went from making like 5 to anywhere to 10 beats a day, like while I was in college, and then as I've kind of gotten older, kind of expanded my hobbies and done other things and gotten into other things. I don't make beats near as much as I used to. I make them, ever so often, but I don't make them to the point that I was, because that kind of helped that burnt me out.